Hello, welcome to another Random Code stream. This is going to be doing some more work on Spackle, this little library that I have that has some the classic helper utility methods. But I've used it to store those kinds of things that I find useful or what I think would be interesting, and it's also an excuse to just, keep the rust from occurring and actually doing programming rather than letting something else do it for me. So I think that's always helpful. You don't go to a gym to let a forklift lift the weights for you. You go to a gym to be you lifting the weights or riding the bikes or going on a track to run, so that you get the benefit of the exercise. Conversely, you wouldn't use if you could use a forklift to move a whole bunch of heavy supplies and whatnot, of course you do that rather than people, because it's so much more efficient that way. So, use the right tool for the right job at the right time when it's fitting its purpose. I think that's what I'm getting at. Anyway, just poured my coffee. Let's get my music going. And let's actually stop getting distracted like I did the last time I did a Random Code stream and do this thing, which is to add an extension method on hash set. I'm trying to get used to the new syntax for extension and not like write the original way of doing it and then letting Visual Studio change it for me. I do that a lot with like collection initializers and ranges and indexes, and I need to be better at that. So, all right. So what do we want here? We want a public void add range, where what we're trying to add can be just any kind of collection, right? Actually, let's look real quick and see if we did var x equals new list of string, and then we said x dot add range. What would that look like? It's a source. That's what they're calling it. Okay. Let's just kind of stick with naming conventions. So what we want to say here is for each var item in source, no. Oh, yeah. Self.add item. And then we want to validate that. So argument null exception, throw if null. There. That's it. That should be it. Now, again, the problem with this is that there's no way to do XML comments on this, which I find annoying, because I would like to say that I will throw an exception if the thing we're extending is null. But, oh well. Adds a number of items to an existing hash set. The items to add to. And so we can't do param ref. We want to say self here, but we can't. If I would do compile here, this would break, because it's going to probably say, yeah. This really bothers me that you can't. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm kind of wondering, C# 14 extension XML comments param ref. Yeah, I was just trying to see if there was any hint at what you could do with that. I don't know if it's actually been noticed by anybody. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in the Discord channel and ask about extension. How do I reference the parameter if with paramref? And then there was another thing. Why is CA10 going to get updated to not have issues with extension? I guess that's where I could look up and see if there's already like a if there's an issue in flight with that. So, because that is a little annoying. Okay, so that's all we need to do, right? So, as always, tests, hash set, extensions, tests. And these should be internal, yes. So, public static void add. One of the simplest, var, sure. And can we do initialization on it? Yes, we can. Awesome. So we want to say set.add range. Thank you. And we can put in here 4, 5, 6, right? And what we should have here, assert that set is equivalent to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it passed, as it should. And then we'll say add existing members. So we're going to have 4, 5, 1. So this should just be 4, 5. I really don't know if we should care at all about this, because honestly, we're not trying to test. Are we testing the way a hash set works, you know, or are we testing that we're just adding the members, you know? There's always that fine line when you're adding tests is, are you adding tests that are actually testing someone else's implementation? Which is not necessarily what you want to do. We just want to test that we're actually adding the members to it. So I kind of think this is a little too much. Add when source, add when self is null. So this should actually be pretty easy. We should say assert that null as hash set. Again, of int, doesn't matter. Add range, 4, 5, 6. We do all that. Throws type of argument null exception. We'll get rid of that. Really? Oh, did I do the wrong thing? Oh, well, yeah, we want to do that, but we also want to... See? I thought I was hearing a noise for a second, so... So now this should throw, and it does, but we also want to test for... And it can just be this. We don't actually have to initialize it to anything. Add range. We can say no. All right. Simple. Oh. Okay, so that one we can remove, but this is the one we want. Okay. So this is going to be 14.0.0. Not yet released because we don't know. We can put in here, we forgot to update it for .NET 10 to target .NET 10. And I could have this target .NET 8 as well, but I don't see a point for that much anymore. If you wanted to still use it for 8, you could use the 13.0 version, and that would be fine. All right. That issue was, this is a library. It's called Spackle, just a little utility library, adding some features to it. The link is in the description of the stream. So that was 51. Okay. And then we want an added a add range extension method for hash set. And this would be the issue that we're on, which is 52. Okay, git commit, added tests, time for a merge, save and commit, push. All right, let me do the little branch management here. And then let's push this. And then let's get rid of that. Get rid of that. And this is done. Thank you. Appreciate the subscription. Appreciate it. No, not this one. This one. Close. All right. There's that one. What do we want to do next? This one came up as I was changing stuff, which is if you look at this class that I have here, Spackle, I'm not secure random. It originally derived from the random type, which is actually not cryptographically secure, and you'll start getting, like if I change this to go to random, well, that's going to cause some errors, but there's also an error that's going to come up and saying that you should be using it because, you know, it's not secure. So that makes sense. But there's really no point to deriving from this anymore. All these methods are just essentially helper methods that are on a random number generator. Okay. And if we look at this, you know, it is an abstract class in of itself, you know, so that it has a creator, a static method on it to get the singleton instance of it. But there's really no need for us to create our own. Or if you want to do any of these these methods, arguably they should be able to be done on any random number generator instance. So if we did make it extension methods, then if you provided your own random implementation that derives from random number generator, then this would work with them as well, because like to get big integer, it would use, it basically goes to this method, which uses next bytes. It eventually ends up using the actual generator here. And what's interesting is when I looked at this, well, interesting to me, when I looked at this last time, you know, there are some uses of it here, but I think what would be better is to make this a set of extension methods. So why don't we do that? All right, so let's just back everything out and let's create a new branch. All right, so we're going to have now in Spackle, we're going to have a random number generator extensions type. Public static class. And let's kind of use our random. So there. I don't know why it wasn't, you couldn't get the namespace that way. I thought that always worked that way. Okay. So we want to have an extension on an instance. Okay. And we probably want to we don't need to dispose here, but we do want these things in here. And they're just complaining because we haven't used them yet, but we will. We don't care about the constructors anymore. We don't care about the dispose anymore. Okay. So we'll grab that and we'll put that in there. Again, we have to probably clean some things up here. So if we say this dot next, where are we going with that? Self dot. Yeah. Okay, so we created our own next method. Fine. And we don't need to make it virtual. And here we say self.getBytes. There. And now that goes to here. We still need to do this get big integer. Right, because this is get big integer with range. Okay. Don't care about disposing. And say self.next. Oh, because we don't have we didn't put this one in. And we don't need to make it virtual. Okay, so now we come back up here. We have next bytes. Yes, we do. Actually, we could probably just grab all these because we're going to need them. Except that one. That one we don't need. And then we say self, into the virtual. There. So now I got those cleared up. So now we can say self.nextBytes, self.next. Okay, so we did get big integer with range, right? With the max. We did not do this one. So let's grab that one. Need that. Do that. Okay, we have get big integer. We did that up here, right? Yep. Get byte values. Did we put that in here yet? No, we did not. We did not do get double values or get in 32 values. Let's grab all those. Alright, so we got to clean these up. Take that off. Random number generator extensions. Now we're finally using that. Self. Self. Now this is going to make... No, it won't make the test harder because we can still create a mock of a random number generator so that we can control when random values are being generated. All right. I think we have covered everything now with this. Sizes are generally the same. Like in terms of line length, so I think I caught everything. We have 3 next methods. Next. Ooh, we did not. This one has just a next. Between 0 and there you go. Yeah, it's a much better way of putting it in there. Let's look at the comments real quick, see if there's anything we can clean up there. Yeah, we can do that here too, I think. Wait, what are we? Actually, I think what we could do is say no. And then divided by cref. There. And so you're actually putting in those two values and saying you're dividing by them. There. And then here we could say cref value generation unique. All right. Do the same thing here. And then we could do the same thing probably here. Except it's going to be int max value, right? There. I like this. I like cleaning up the I don't know how you would do. Between end and the start from range. I think that would work enough. Yeah, we want to do this. Let's keep it that way. And this is the one that's got the range in it. Okay. All right. Man, I really torqued my arm. Like, it was over a week ago, and it was during a self-defense lesson. And since I was having us use like really light weights to do some moves, and he did emphasize, don't try to do them at the same speed, because even with a very small amount of weight, you know, you could hurt yourself. Well, me being the dummy that I am, was still trying to, like, you know, do that. And I think like some punches, especially like this, I think I maybe hyperextended a little bit. And man, it's just not gone away after like a week. So I don't know, maybe I have to go to a doctor and have that taken a look at, because it's not getting any better. And I'm trying to minimize usage of it to try to get it to relax. I don't know, maybe look up, how do I work with a hyperextended arm or something? I don't know. But anyway, at least I can type. At least I can still do that. So now what we want to do is we kind of want to come into here. And we want to put here random number generator tests, whatever. Okay. So we want to get big integer with 0 line. Okay. So now what we could do here is just say random number generator dot create. And then, whoops, there. Okay. And let's actually force the issue. Let's make secure random completely commented out, because then that's going to start throwing issues here. And that'll be exactly what we want. Now, for some of these, we can't. Oh, really? Fine. That's interesting that it does that, because if you look at create here, There's a random number generator implementation. And so that's some interior class that gives you a singleton, but then why would you want to make that disposable? Because if you dispose that, wouldn't that screw up anybody else that has that? I don't know. They must have thought of that. I'm going to assume people on the .NET team have already thought of such a thing. Okay. So that. Yeah, most of these you can just use the underlying random number generator, so. We don't care about this case anymore. And we don't care about this case anymore. What did we miss up here? Create generator as default provider. We don't care about that case anymore either. Yeah, this one I created my own generator. And so what we do here is we just say, whoops. We just call it on that. Because this should derive from random number generator, which it does. Okay. No. You want one of these. And then we don't need that. So we say generator. Get byte values. And then we don't need this anymore. And we say generator. Not that. Generator. And we have these little mock types. I'm not using rocks in here because honestly that would be a little bit of overkill. We only need these types to generate expected values for the test. And this is a good example of when you need to have a mock because you want to control when the random numbers are coming back. All right, what's the issue here? Really? Huh. I guess I don't use it anymore. Where is this one coming from? Or more to the point, where is this being defined? Oh, it's a separate type. Okay. So now if we come into here, we should be able to do the same thing here, which is to highlight everything and comment it all. And we'll eventually delete it. For now, I'm just commenting it out, but I will definitely delete it. Yep. Thank you. Do we get everything to build now? No, we don't. List extensions. Interesting. Well, Here we would just say random number generator dot create, because that's effectively what we're doing here. And then this becomes a random number generator. So yeah, this is definitely breaking some oh, for God's sakes. Using var random is equal to that. Random. There. That should take care of everything. Really? Oh, it doesn't. Yeah, that kind of sucks that it doesn't do that. Okay, now what? Oh. I don't know why I picked this. Well, we could just say random number generator create. Now, how did the test run? They all pass. Awesome. So we just did it. Yippee. Okay, so we get rid of that. Get rid of that. Let's put into our changelog that we changed. Removed secure random and refactored its members into random number generator extensions. And this is issue 54. Nice. I like that. That works out really well. At least I think it does. Maybe I should make some more coffee here. That might be a good idea. All right, 54 created random number generator extensions. Time for a merge. All right, get manage branches, do this little dance again. Push. Get rid of that. And this is done. Making progress. Okay. The next one I wanted to do is yeah, we'll skip that one for now. I really think that the one I want to do is this indices of. So this idea that you give it, you have a string, and instead of saying index of, I want to get indices of. And this came up again with Random.Code, but I already had this issue in here since the beginning of last year. That's right, it's 2026 now. Got to get that in my head. And I kind of wonder if it's because it came up with something in the last advent of code. And that's why I have this in here. So I do think it would be beneficial to have something like this, though. And then also to have an option to say, do I want to find unique ones or do I want to find overlapping ones? So let's do this. We'll at least start on it. Okay. We already have a string extensions here. So what we want to have is the indices of. So something like a public, well, actually, let's do the dance here. Now we got to take this out. Now we can't show that. That's something I'm going to definitely, after I'm done streaming here, is go into one of those channels and talk about what are people doing for this, you know, because it's kind of confusing to me. Okay, so we'll just move on for now. So let's say we want public, I think we'd want an int indices of, and let's just do a char value. Okay. So if we did self.index of, yeah, and those are ints. Okay. So what we want to do now is we want to say on self find, and for a char, we don't need that, that enum that I was talking about in the issue. So what we want to do is var say indices is equal to a new list of int. And then we want to return indices to array. And then it's going to tell me, hey, do that. Okay. So what we want to say now is while we're getting, as long as we're getting a new index of value, so we want to say while self.index of, well, self.index of value. No, I don't want to use contains instead of index of to improve readability. Shut up. Actually, we're going to ignore that because I know what I'm doing. Okay, so we could do a do while here, but we want to say, well, let's do this. So we're going to get at least one call. And then we're going to say while index doesn't equal that. Thank you. We're going to add index. We're going to say indices add index. And now we're going to say but we want to have a start index here. So we want to say here var start index is equal to 0. And we start here. Okay. Now start index is going to be moved to the index we found plus 1. What are you complaining about? Unnecessary assignment to a... Well, no, it isn't, because now we have to do this. So we get it. We say if we found one, then we add it to the indices that we were finding. Then we move to the next one, the next index, and we say, okay, tell me if there's one there or somewhere down the string. Now, if that, once it's minus 1, that means we didn't find it, and we just return the number of indices. Gets all the indices of the value to look in actually, I'm kind of wondering if I said here, let me just check something. Param ref. If I say self here, that's going to cause an error, right? What? So if I say param ref, okay, why does that work here, but not here? Okay, now that's interesting. It does work if the parameter is not generic. If it is generic, it's not working. That don't work. Had to try. Okay. CS 1734. CS 1734. It seems to work with non-generic extension instances, but a generic will fail. I'll have to confirm that and do some tests on that. Because that, yeah, that's interesting that that does work. This is why I also do these kinds of libraries and have these little side projects, because it lets me, as I've said other times, it lets me explore things and see how things actually work or don't work. Because this is actually nice to do it this way. But now it doesn't work here. That is bizarre. It does work here, but it doesn't work here. As a param tag for self. But it is in the extension, and it doesn't find... I don't understand the inconsistency here. I'm almost, yeah, if I look it up, I'm almost going to be guaranteed that it's something that other people have found already. But it is interesting that it does work in this one case. All right, so let's just start adding some tests. Test. Public static void get indices when character exists. A, B, C, D, E, F. Var indices is equal to content indices of, and we want to find D. Using assert enter multiple scope, we want to assert that indices has count equal to 1. Length. Thank you. Assert that indices 0 is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3. And that worked. How about when multiple? So we can have A, D, C, D, D, E, F, D. So now we should see 2, 3, 4. There should be 4. So let's get these in here and then figure out what the right values are. So we're going to have 1, 2, 2, 3, then 4 and 5, 6, 7, then 8. Okay. And now we want to have get indices where no character one character exists, when multiple characters, when no characters exist. And then this should be A, B, C, E, F. We want to find G. This should just be 0. We don't need that. We can get rid of that. Perfect. All right. And then if you do anything bad, well, yeah, the argument out of range exception would be on us if we did something wrong. All right, we got, well, one of them done. There's probably going to be more than just one. Did indices of for char. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to say we want indices of where you're doing a string, and then this is where would I do this? We want to have an indices search. Instead of an index search, we want an indices search. But you'd say either unique or overlap. And because again, if you're trying to search, like in this case for this within this, you want to say, I just want to find unique ones and move on from there. Or as long as I find one, then I just move to one index over. Because if you had a bunch of A's, and you wanted to find all the instances where you had 2 A's. Well, that could either be like 5 or 10. If you had 10 A's in a row and you were looking for a string of 2 A's, what you would want to say is, I want to find, it depends on what you want to find though. Do you want to find all unique instances of that in there, like a chunk of 2 A's and then a chunk of 2 A's? Or do you want to say, I just want to find where that exists throughout that string? And that is a different request. So that's why I want to have this enum in there to say, how do you do that search? But I think that'd be a good thing to do in the next stream, which I will probably do tomorrow morning or Sunday morning. We'll see. So let's make sure I've got stuff committed. So we've got a good start on this, but this was the easier case. The next one won't be, I think, too hard, but it is something to take a look at. I'm also off camera going to look at this thing with parameter ref and the extension thing here, because it feels very, it was definitely very inconsistent here, and it doesn't seem to want to be consistent, if that makes sense. So, and I don't know why. It feels like you should just be able to do this with this if your extension is on an instance. If it's on a class and it's a static extension method that you're making, then obviously that wouldn't work because there's no param there. But if I do have a parameter here, I feel like I should be able to reference it. And why I can do it here but not down here and it doesn't work, I have no idea. So I'm going to take a look at that off camera. But I am done for now, so I want to thank everybody who's been watching, either now or in the future. Please subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it if you did that. And if you've already subscribed, I appreciate you for doing that. After lunch today, I live in the Central Time Zone, so after lunch today, I'm going to be doing a new game, starting up a whole new game that I've never played before. So that's going to be a fun experience. I haven't done that in quite a while, so that'll be fun, and I'm looking forward to that. So with that, I am going to end this stream. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.